computer doesn't. Did I do that? That was, I see. Okay. So welcome everybody. We are joined here. My name is Cami Bruner. I work for Zero Waste Washington on the Repair Economy Initiative. And we are joined here today by several fine folks from across the nation to some degree. We got Colorado and then mostly Washington represented. But we're going to be addressing the challenges of recruitment in this day and age and thinking about some creative ways to approach that, especially for our small repair and reuse businesses. So just a quick snapshot. I was going to put this into the chat. Maybe I will not do that. We're going to have a presentation from Jose Luis Ramos, who is over in Longmont, Colorado. Then Micah Jonet from the Center for Inclusive Entrepreneurship out in Port Angeles. Then we'll take a few minutes for Q&A, then a quick break, and then come back and we'll be joined by John Glenn of Workforce, Rafael Colon of Shared Work, and Stephanie Patterson from LNI. So we're going to be talking about a lot of stuff. Hopefully address some of your questions, raise some new questions, and think through this together. So with that, I will hand it over to Jose Luis. Jose Luis, you are muted.
Okay, can you hear me now? Let me reshare my screen. I couldn't find the unmute button. Thank you. All right. Okay, so I'm sharing the presentation now. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Jose Luis Ramos. I representing Monarca Group. It's a consulting company that we recently started, a partner of mine and I here in Colorado. We do consulting for different institutions and organizations. And our job is, we do have experience in sustainability and also in outreach, community outreach. We do a lot of economic development around here in Colorado. So today we're going to be talking a little bit about how can you think about outside the box when it comes to recruiting, and also what are the things that will make this that you can do to be more inclusive while thinking about recruiting. So let's get started. So first of all, when we're talking about recruiting, based on my experience, I used to have a restaurant. I had it for almost 11 years. And I had to go through this process myself of learning how to run a business and what's going to happen, everyday work. And then sometimes we lose sight of the important thing. And we need employees to be able to help us in running our business. So one of the things that I decided to get started is with the format for your message. When you're looking at how am I going to be recruiting? It's the format that you use is super important. One of the things, and this is based on my experience because I'm bilingual, I'm bicultural, and I've been working with different businesses in Northern Colorado. Some of the things that I learned is depending on who you're trying to recruit, an important thing is if you're setting up your message, make sure that you consider the language. Depending on the target, who are you trying to recruit? You might have to translate your information to other languages. Typically, I do it in Spanish, so I do when I put a job posting, I translate it to other. But it's also important to consider ADA requirements, American Disability Act requirements, because there is other groups that are out there that are isolated, and they're also trying to, sometimes they're looking for a job and they don't have the option of applying because the format of your message is not focusing on them. So think about those different options, okay? And as I mentioned before, for me, when some of the jobs that I've been posting in the last couple of years, we always have the Spanish required. Why? Because what we do is we want to work with the Latino community here in Colorado. So I need somebody that is bilingual, but it's focusing on Spanish. And that is giving me the results that I want, because when I posted, I get that those applications in here, because I changed my language to target the employees that I want to hire. Visual. Make sure that when you're trying to put your application out there, make it visual. It's more important than the description. The full description is not as important. If you're trying to market the job that you have, use images, use videos, posters, flyers, things like that. Reach out to the community that you're trying to reach. Also, when I'm looking for a job, if I see the poster that you're posting for, looking for an employee, if I see myself reflected on the image that you're posting, I might have I might decide to apply for that because it's appealing to me. So think about the visual, also the message you're trying to communicate. When it comes down to a multicultural, right? Let's think about when you're crafting your message for hiring. Think outside the box. Multicultural. There is, based on my experience, there is a lot of immigrants that are here in this country. They have been here for years, and at least I can talk about my Latino community. We have the tendency to be entrepreneurs. We like partnerships. We like to work with, in places where we see potential for us to someday start our own business doing the same, or work, work some kind of a partnership so that we can work together. So think about that. There is other groups out there that you can focus on. And finally, the message. I don't know if you can see this, but I copied this message. This message that you see on the bottom, it's listed on the job application. When you apply for the city of Fort Collins, they always have this caption at the bottom of the application. And that made a big difference. When they started putting that in there, it made a big difference, because it is true what they say. Studies have shown that women and people of color are less likely to apply for a job unless they believe they can perform every job description task. What that means basically is that we are super, in my case, I always try, when I look for a job, a posting, I try to check and see, okay, do I qualify for this job? Do I have everything that they're requiring here? And if I see that I don't meet something, I don't meet a requirement, then I get discouraged and I'm not gonna apply. So if we start putting this in there, I think that's going to be very helpful, because I've seen that. I had some experience with people that we had a job opening, and that person came to apply for the job. She applied, but when you look at the description, she thought that she wasn't going to be good enough for that because of the description. So she got discouraged, and she didn't continue with the process. And she was the best qualified candidate for us. So those things happen. So messages like this in your application will be very helpful. I've seen this caption on many applications around here. So once you have your message formatted, then we move to the next step, which is, okay, so you have your message, you have your requirements. So what do you have as requirements? Okay. Is it, we're talking about the repair industry here, but there is also some skill jobs within the repair industry that you want somebody that is really well qualified. But is it really necessary? Is it really, would you rather have somebody with a lot of experience that doesn't apply, or somebody that is really willing to learn and wants to apply. I don't know, there might be some some places that are asking for employees that are they're requiring education. But the question is, do you really need that? Sometimes the experience, and I'm talking about this based on my experience. So me, I'm a software engineer, so by education, but I do economic development because that's my experience. By owning a business, I learned a lot about the business world, and my software engineering school skills I'm not using anymore. I'm using other things, hidden talents. A lot of people that is out there. I know a lot of immigrants that have come here that are working today at different, minimum wage jobs, and they are engineers, they are doctors, attorneys that are working because they just haven't had the opportunity to transfer their paperwork, to do the validation here in the United States. So a lot of immigrants have different talents that are hidden, and they just cannot use them because they don't have the paperwork that is needed for them to do. Transferable skills, what I'm talking about here, I always like to go back to an example. It's like when a long time ago during my time, we had operators moving the little switches on the wall, right? So then everything changed, and these operators got technology kick in, and they pretty much got out of the work because they couldn't continue that. Now technology was taking care of that. Same thing that is happening today with artificial intelligence. There are gonna be some jobs that are gonna be obsolete because of that. So there's a lot of people that has some specific skills that are very transferable, to what we need today in the marketplace, and that's considering the obsolete jobs. It's basically what that is. Bilingual. So if you're in a place where there is a big Latino population that you're not focusing on, and you want to capture some of that, then can you, as I said before, can you require that job to be a bilingual? It doesn't make any sense to hire somebody that only speaks English when you're going to have to be working with a Latino population, and that person is not going to be able to communicate, nor, which is the most important part, is that person is not going to be able to make connections. And that's one of the things that I bring to the table here in my job. What I do is I make connections with businesses. I work with businesses every day. So before I talk to them about sustainability, before I talk to them about economic development, the first thing that I do always is make the connection. Why? Because I'm bicultural. I can make that connection, and I can work with that business because I know business and I can help them that way. So the experience again comes back. And I mentioned the immigrant talents. There's a lot of people out there that have super big talents, and they're looking for opportunities. Work arrangement. One of the things that I've seen around here too is I've seen some jobs that are offering, they're looking for a part-time job. We just hired somebody. We had a position for a full-time job, and we had 3 candidates that were super qualified for that job. And at the end of the day, they were going to drop from the application because they didn't have time to do things that are complicated with their families, and they didn't have time to do a full-time. So what we did is we hired all those 3, split the work among them, and then they're working, focusing on different areas. All 3 of them, one is working 10 hours a week, the other is working 20 hours a week, and the last one is working 30 hours a week, and it's working perfectly for everybody. So let's be flexible. There are some times when things happen at home, family. There's so many things that are happening that if we are flexible enough, I think we can solve some of those problems. There is people. My wife is an example. When we had our daughter, one of the things that happened back then, she was working for a place, and when she had my daughter, then she couldn't work anymore. Because she wanted to take care of my daughter. So the person that was there at the place that she was working at, they offered her to bring the stuff that she was doing home so that she could take care of my daughter and work from home. So, I mean, there is tool lending, good pay. I mean, there's so many things that we have to start doing because of the shortage that we have. We have to start being a little more creative in terms of that. I've seen some people in California that is offering room and board so that and they just do the numbers and they do some different combinations of that thing. Some companies are offering childcare, are offering to provide childcare, either pay for it or provide so that they can bring some more people in that are tied because of their children. Job co-creation could be another idea. Partnership, you can partner with schools, with other businesses. Maybe the person that you're looking for can split, half time with you, half time with another person. Create work with government, with nonprofit organizations, and see what can we do working together to try to hire this talent that is out there. And word of mouth, the people that you have today, your employees that you have, they know their communities, they know who can be a good fit for your company. So you might want to provide some incentives for these employees so that they can bring qualified candidates, offer them professional development so that they can help you with the recruiting, with all of that stuff. Friends, places you visit, if you go to a restaurant and you see, I've been to different restaurants, and when I'm sitting down and I see these people, a waiter or a waitress that is like moving really fast and is super efficient and it's really good, that's the kind of person that I want to hire for my restaurant. That is the kind of person that I see the professionalism in. So I see them at work, and I can tell that person it's qualified for the job. So reach out to those people too. And now you have your format, you have your the way that you're going to be doing that. So now, how do you do the posting? What I'm recommending here is you have to select first, who are you trying to target? Are you trying to target, as I said before, do you want somebody that is bilingual? Do you want somebody that is that understands or your community has a big Asian community? Can you get somebody from that community to apply, or to try to attract somebody like that can help you reach out to that community? So you have to, in order for you to market the job, go to the neighborhoods, to the stores, the organizations, churches, sport leagues. I mean, just look around, by coming down and talking to people and asking them to help you. I think that goes a long way if you decide on who you want to hire. That's important. The media that you're going to use, super important. Social media. Please always consider the digital gap. Not everybody has an email. Not everybody has a computer. So, think about other options, not only posting on Indeed, which is the picture that I have here. Not only posting here, but think about Craigslist. Think about going to the neighborhoods, do intentional marketing, depending on the market that you're trying to attract. Do there, go to events, set up some tables at events, and bring your job posting, print it out so that for people that do not have a computer, they can see, make it easy for them to apply. Finally, the neighborhood outreach is very important. There is a lot of community leaders in different neighborhoods that you can talk to and perhaps hire them to promote the job that you have. Reach out to that community that you're trying to reach out to. Create some incentives for promotion so that these community leaders, you can give them a gift certificate if they send you somebody that can apply. And there is so many things. One of the places that we work here with, one organization hired this group to do canvassing. They gave them the flyers, and they went on a neighborhood, home by home, just passing around flyers, and that was very effective. A lot of people that typically does not get reached out by emails and digital media, they got the information, and they got some good results. And the other thing that I like to recommend is accessibility. Okay, when you're if you, let's say that you organize a table at an event, or you want to do you participate in a fair that's going to be posting some jobs, a job fair, something like that. Make sure that the job fair has easy access, transportation. A lot of people don't have a car, so they might want to take the bus. If you can provide transportation, a shuttle or something, so they can come and look at what you have to offer, I think that is really important. One of the places that I work with is government, and what I always ask government people is not to put to make the application at a government office. Make it in a neutral location. The library is a great place. Everybody knows the library and trusts the library. So that will give you some access to other communities. Just think about the schedule that you're using. What time are you getting these people, these fairs? What time is it? Is it Friday evening, or is it Thursday evening, when everybody is out of work and they can go and do that? Again, ADA access. Provide childcare, interpretation, and translation when it's necessary. So in general, I think those are some of the little tips that I can give you. I thank you very much for listening, and I think my time is up. Cami, I'm going to stop sharing my screen.
Great, thank you. And we're going to turn it over to Micah now from the Center for Inclusive Entrepreneurship.
Hi, thank you. It's going to be a tough act to follow. Thanks, Jose Luis. Cami, thanks for having us here. Yeah. I'm chatting as I'm trying to get my screen to work with me, and I ran out of words to say. So, as Cami said, I'm Micah Jonnet with the Center for Inclusive Entrepreneurship. We're a nonprofit that is partnered with the Washington SBDC to provide business advising to free, of course, with no cost at all to small businesses. And we're really to fill that gap where you're too small of a business to have a lot of the staff that you need to make the really slow business decisions that a larger corporation would make. But you're growing at a pace where you're running out of tough stuff to do yourself. We are in rural places. We've got big dreams, and we want people to be able to care for themselves and really care for their community. And a really good way to keep that going is having employees. How many of you in here right now already have an employee or are looking at hiring your first? Or use a reaction if you already have employees. If you're all here looking for your first, you've got a great group of people talking to you. So it is difficult to hire employees. It's why you're all here. It's always been hard, and it's gotten even harder the past couple of years. We've heard that from many of our clients. We've heard it from and many of our people who are going through our courses to start their businesses are doing it because they don't want to work for anybody else. And that's a hard place to be while you're looking for somebody to help you. And so I want to talk a little bit first about if you really need this employee. Hiring an employee, especially your first employee, is one of the hardest things you can do as a business. When it's just yourself, it's just you. You're your own boss. If you're sick, it's easy enough to deal with. Once you hire somebody, you're working with ESD, you're working with labor and industries, you're dealing a lot more with the government. And there's a lot more rules, which are great. They protect the worker, they protect you as an employer. But before you jump into the biggest expense, it might be worth looking around to see if there's something out there that can fill the needs you have without you having to grab that employee. Is there a technology that smooths over what you're stuck with, that frees up 10 hours of your week, that really makes it easier? Is there somebody you can hire either as a professional service provider or as an independent contractor that can carry you forward without the help? I know a lot of people they'll hire their bookkeepers, they'll hire marketers for them, or they'll contract with bookkeepers and marketers to take some of the things off of their plate that distracts them from the core of their business. And that's a really good way to kind of bridge the gap and to give you that time to really figure out and really craft that position for who you want. Because it does take a while to find somebody. And as we learned from Jose Luis, there's a lot of thought that goes into who you're hiring. So here are some of the options. There's tons of software out there that can free stuff up. If you're spending too much of your time scheduling times to meet with folks, there's software for that. There's all kinds of stuff out there that can make you a little more efficient. And that might really be all you need at this point, instead of having to wade through everything there is with an employee. But if you're here, I'm assuming you really need the help. So it's an employee. That's what we're going to do. I'm following up Jose Luis, who covered all this in great detail, so I'll be able to kind of bounce around a little bit more than he had to. But a really important question to ask yourself is, what are they going to do? And that's important for you to know when you're hiring somebody, to make the right decision, to craft that job posting, to bring in the right person, to really make them happy to be there. One of the worst things you can do to an employee is tell them, oh, I'm hiring you for this one specific task. This is what you're going to do. And on their first week, they end up doing something completely different. They, especially now where it's employees can leave at the drop of a hat and find another job somewhere else if they want it, you really have to think about how they're coming in, and you want them to know what they're coming into, and you want to know for your own good that what they're doing is going to help you the most. And a few things to really think about when you're doing that is what that you do as the current business owner, possibly only employee. What do you do that makes the company and makes you the most money and the most impact? And if it's something that's going to take a really long time to train somebody else on, and it's going to take years to become an expert in the craft, think about what they can do to take all the other things off your plate so you can focus more on what you're doing, on the skill that you bring to the company. A good way to think of it, what are you too valuable to spend your time doing? Would you pay somebody $50 an hour to answer phones? Probably not. But you might pay somebody $50 an hour to fix Ferraris. So it really depends on the value of what you're doing, because if you can buy yourself a bunch of time by paying somebody else to do some things that you really can't afford to take the time for anymore, that's going to be great. If you need somebody who really is going to learn that skill, and you need somebody dedicated, and you need somebody who's going to stick around for years to really get good at that skill, become an expert like you, that you need to be upfront about that too. You don't want to end up hiring somebody who's only going to be there for 4 months if you're going to spend 2 months training them. And once again, like Jose Luis said, it is really hard to get somebody to choose you at this point. And you need to think pretty hard about why someone would want to work with you. And a good way to start that is to think about why you got into it. Is it flexible? Are you able to do things in the evenings when you're working another full-time job? What is it that really captured you on the business? And it's going to really impact the person that you're looking for. Think of it kind of like finding a customer. If you're repairing boots, you know that your customers are going to be somebody who wears leather boots, takes good care of them, and has stuff that's valuable enough that it's worth repairing. If you've got a job that's really flexible, people get to kind of train themselves how to do it, people get to take a lot of ownership of their behavior, you are not going to want to find somebody who's just looking for a boss who's going to tell them what to do so they can clock in, clock out, go home and not think. If you're just looking for somebody to do exactly what you're telling them to do in the order that you're doing it, in the way that you want them to do, you're not going to want to look for somebody who's full of creative ideas, who's always trying to do something new, who's distracted if they spend more than 30 minutes on the same thing. And it's really important that the job you have for them fits the needs of what you're doing, and that the people you're looking for fit the role that you're trying to fill. And the biggest mistake I've seen with small businesses trying to hire is that either they don't know what those things are, or they know them perfectly well, but anybody reading the job posting, anybody hearing about this opening doesn't understand what they're getting into. Because one of the worst things you can do is spend all the time, spend all the effort to find an employee and have them not work out in the first week, or have them spend all your time training them up and then they're like, this isn't for me, and I thought this was going to be easier. So it's really important to make sure the job is clear. Attracting the talent is, Jose Luis talked about it. We've got some more people talking about it. The rest of this, it's hard. It's going to be very dependent on the individual that you can find, which is why it's so important to sort of have a clear picture of who you're trying to get while you're going out there. And while you're thinking of employees, it's worth thinking about the future as well. What do you want this business to be? Does it end with you? Do you retire in 5 years and close the business? Are you going to work for the next 25 years, building this, hiring more people, growing it further and further? If it doesn't end with you, how do you envision it continuing? Do you want an employee to own it? Do you want to hand it off to somebody who continues it going? Do you want a child, somebody in your family to take over for you, keep it in the family, keep it going? Do you want to just sell it to somebody for as much as you can? Or do you want to play with some of a little more novel possibilities? Do you want to train 5 employees on how to run the business, how to manage, how to replace you, and set it up as a co-op as you leave? There's a lot of different possibilities, and especially now with so many people starting their own businesses and really being unhappy with working for someone else, if you're in a position where you're looking to hire somebody and in a few years this could be handed off to you, this could be your business, that is a really good way to attract help in this environment, because we have seen some of the broadest interest in starting a business in a long time recently. And it's a lot of work. And if you can train somebody up and they know that at the end of it, they get the opportunity to buy a business from you or to get it handed down from them to you, it's going to make them really happy and honestly a lot more dedicated to what you're doing. As you could see, there's really mostly questions that we're talking about here. It's hard to know exactly what to do. It has become so much more personal. And talk to folks about it. Talk to other business owners. Talk to me or Rick, our program manager. We're both business advisors. We'll talk to you for free. Talk with the SBDC. It's really worth bouncing these ideas around, bouncing the possibilities around, because we're at a point where we've got to be creative, because the balance has sort of changed and employees are able to dictate what they want and what they're hoping to get. So that's my time. We've got room for questions here.
Great. And I will, Jose Luis, you can jump back in here. Micah, I wanted to ask what you're seeing, what you're hearing from some of your clients. We've talked a little bit about how obviously you're a center for entrepreneurship. People are coming to you because they think they want to start their own businesses, but are you seeing maybe some alternatives to that for them?
Yeah, a big reason that most of the people are coming to us is for flexibility around their life. There's a lot of people with kids staying at home, and they're looking to start a business because there are no jobs that they can work while caring for their child, or they've looked for jobs for years and there's nothing they can find with their record, or there's nothing they can find that's flexes with the season so they can hunt and put food in the freezer during the winter. It's really the lack of option that's driving a lot of people to starting their own business. And I think that's a great area for people to try to hire from, because what's out there now and what's being offered isn't something that's attracting a lot of workers. And business ownership seems to be half and half desperation and desire.
Yeah, and my own experience during the pandemic, I started in Fort Collins. I started the Multicultural Business and Entrepreneur Center, and within 2 years work, I helped start 94 companies, just because of the lack of work, because they were fired by their employees, and they suddenly realized that they didn't want to work for these big franchises for the rest of their life. So they say, here's an opportunity. I have this talent. I want to get started with this. And it was a booming in entrepreneurship over the last couple of years here.
I think you've both touched on this a little bit, but what I keep hearing is this sense of agency, that's one of the biggest sellers that drive people into entrepreneurship. Do you have any recommendations for business owners to help leverage more agency in hiring? That's a big ask. I don't have any recommendations, but you're the expert, so I'm hoping you do.
I didn't understand what that means. Can you rephrase that for me, please?
So you both talked about just people wanting to have sort of more ownership over what they do. And I can imagine that's why so many people want to start their own business. So how can how can employers help create that same sense of ownership
Okay.
within a role?
Yeah, I'll give you an example. I have in Fort Collins, there is a upholstery business, right? This person is 78 years old, and he only gets like, he's high demand, but he can't take care of that, all the business that is, because it's probably like 3 or 4 upholstery shops in the whole city. So very big demand. So he only takes what he can. And what he decided to do is he hired somebody to kind of teach somebody that was interested. And these 2 people started working for him. And they work at a deal where they were going to work as an employee to begin with the promise that eventually they will become partners of the business. Once they became experts on that field and they brought in some more customers, then they can split the earnings. So there is a lot of different options and different things that you can do. And I just posted on the chat, Colorado is doing something for succession of businesses, right? So it's they're paying and they're providing consulting services for companies. If they're ready to do a succession plan, how can they do that? So there is other options too.
Micah, any response to that? Is Washington doing that?
I'm not sure about the state level. I know with the SBDC, we have been talking a lot more about succession planning, just because it is so many of I think the majority of our businesses in the state are owned by people who should be retiring in the next 10 years. They may not if they don't have employees for it. And just to kind of echo what Jose Luis said, I think offering employees agency is something that a smaller business can do that a larger business really struggles. Because with a larger business, if you're hiring your 50th employee, there isn't much flexibility with what their work's going to look like, how it's going to be, because it has to be equitable across the organization. If you're the owner and you're hiring one person, you can structure it much more in tandem with the employee. I know we have some clients who are really leaning on that themselves. They're a stay-at-home mom trying to hire other stay-at-home moms with the business, with the job description built around flexibility and the ability to sort of set your own hours. So giving them some of the perks of working for themselves while having someone above them to really kind of steer the ship and give them the goals they have to reach is a nice middle ground between the two. And especially if you're training them in a high value skill. And if you can offer them a business at the very end of it, you're going to get the folks who are really looking for that.
Yeah, I do have another example. There's a restaurant owner that wanted to open a second branch, and his manager was really eager to take over, the new branch, and they work out a deal. He worked for him 2 years, and 2 years later, he opened the restaurant, and they were partners on the second restaurant. So that person started to take over. He had all the experience to manage, and he knew the recipes, and he knew everything. So they worked together, and now he's got a stake on that business, and he's more motivated to be working there. So
I wonder if either of you have any recommendations and of course, anybody here, please put questions that you have in the chat. I have plenty of my own questions, it seems. So I am the child of a plumber, pipe fitter, HVAC guy who never managed to hire an employee because he had such strong feelings about how the work was done. Have you seen successful practices for folks sort of letting go of some of that control? Do you have any recommendations around how they can still maintain quality in their services, but maybe it's through certain kinds of training, I don't know, that they can gradually seed that sense of responsibility and trust to incoming employees.
Yeah, what I've seen out there is examples like that, but it is people that is, when you see an employee that is motivated to learn and that is, on time all the time, and is like really excited about the work that this person is doing. I've seen some employers that have pay for training. They start bringing them with them to for the technical training that they have to take to keep out their licenses and things like that. And they work out, really well, because eventually, I think that it's hard to let go, but I mean, eventually someday that person is going to be running the company, and either you can sell it to that person, or you can work at a partnership, or do something together. There is also people that come to learn, and once they learn, they go and start their own company separate. So that is a risk that you might run, but depending on what kind of things you offer to that person.
Yeah, I think it's very hard, especially with really skill-based things. It's hard to unstake yourself from the quality of the work. And something that we've seen work pretty well in that case is they don't hire somebody to do the technical work. They'll hire an office manager who does their scheduling, who does their bookkeeping, who does the running of the business, and really they almost turn themselves into an employee of somebody they hire to sort of manage. They're like, I just want to show up to a house, fix their ducks, and then go home. And this person collects the money, they do the scheduling, they do all of that. And if you are hiring somebody to kind of do the technical work with you, or underneath you, or after you, it's hard. Like Heather says in the chat, you got to let things break a little bit, because if you've been doing this for years, you're an expert because you've made those mistakes for a lot of years and a lot of time, and you've lost a lot of your own money doing it. And it's unfair and to expect somebody coming in to have the years of your lessons already. So having a good training system set up is great, because you want to make sure they can learn as much from you as they can, but you also have to do, what's the term? Trust and verify. You trust that they'll do it well, and if it doesn't work out well, you teach them how to fix it.
And I've seen some examples of family members, right? The son, the daughter that take over, and that works really well, but you cannot, assume that they want to keep that going. I have 4 children, and none of them wanted to take the restaurant. So it's going to happen. It's life.
Great. Thank you both. We're going to take a quick break and return at 2:55. So see you in a few minutes. Okay, we're back, and if John is with us, I will hand the mic to him and the screen, I guess.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Let me share my screen here. All right. Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for the time today. My name is John Glenn. I'm Director of Business Relations, Workforce Solutions for the Seattle-King County Workforce Development running the business services program, who also oversees the WorkSource system here in Seattle, King County. Today, I'm going to talk to you at a larger state level, though, so that since our audience is from the entire state. So again, I'm going to talk real quick about navigating, utilizing public workforce programs designed for businesses in Washington State. And I've got some other workforce colleagues that are will follow this presentation, so you'll see some pieces of it. So first and foremost, great. So some goals real quick. I'm going to talk about some tools, programs, resources that are available for any business, publicly available to help HR professionals and business operations. A little bit about the public workforce system. The term gets thrown around a lot, and so I'm going to kind of take a top level view to kind of about what does it mean and what is WorkSource, and then who can I contact for service or can get me in the right direction. First and foremost, I wanted the public workforce system, and so bear with me for a little bit here to kind of talk about it. It gets talked about the Department of Labor. It's a network of federal, state, and local government-funded agencies and programs that are designed to help workers, job seekers, and employers. Again, all around supporting our nation's workforce. And so you'll hear that term a lot. So if you just think about taxpayer-funded programs. WorkSource is in the state of Washington, it's branded WorkSource is a piece of that puzzle. And it's a system of partners from, again, government, education, and community-based organizations. They're all coming together under something called the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act, trying to get everything into one place or one system. And in the greater US, it's actually called the American Job Center Network. It's just all 50 states can call it whatever they want in that state. So you'll notice on the logo on the left under WorkSource, it does say a proud partner of the American Job Center Network. So wanted to share that context real quick. You can read it. The Workforce Innovation Opportunity Act was signed in 2014. It's public law. And it's just a way to coordinate between the Department of Labor, Department of Education, Health and Human Services, trying to get a system more where it's one group or consortium of people working together as opposed to different ways. So it hasn't been around a long time. So that's why there's still this newness factor to a lot of it. Again, it's based around a national framework. Again, taxpayer funded programs. It's a top-down model, money coming from the feds to the state and then down to the local levels, of which I am funded federally, but I provide services locally. Again, the focus are business as a customer and job seekers as a customer and current employees and centered around targeted populations. I'll touch more on that in a little bit. Again, there's a program framework on the DOL Department of Labor page. There's also a compliance function too. For those HR professionals on here, there's some fun acronyms there that will mean certain things. So FCCP, VEBRA, EEO. And again, the execution of these programs are a multitude of people. And then I do have a link there for the Department of Labor site for your fun reading. So just kind of giving you the Cliff Notes version here. As I talked about, it's a one-stop system, services under one roof. And then again, no cost, publicly funded leverage resources, the customers, as I talked about, the targeted populations really, besides business, which is to serve any business no matter the size, the population or the job seekers are around several areas that can be dislocated workers, some unemployed, youth, veterans, refugee immigrants, persons with disability, justice involved, about 14 different ones. And then there's 21 programs. You've heard a multitude of them. We'll go over them all today. But American Job Centers is the one I'm focusing on today. Again, all 50 states. There's an online version called Career One Stop. That's kind of the macro view of it all. And then they take you down into the state level from there. And then there's partners that are required by law to be part of that, veterans and unemployment insurance. There's other items that are part of the system, apprenticeships, how to help with layoffs, trade adjustment, work opportunity tax credit, and others. And some of my partners are on here today. So at a state and local level, the workforce board design and have a plan, and then it's executed by the 12 workforce development councils, which I'll share. Talked about WorkSource being part of the American Job Center brand. And again, there's 12 workforce development councils in our state and areas. So I've got a little map there. You can go on there. So where you're at, you can find your workforce development council. Every workforce development council area oversees that WorkSource system. Again, there is a statewide framework, but the actual execution of that local system is by the Workforce Development Council. The Workforce Development Councils are not solely just WorkSource operators. They also oversee a multitude of grants and private funding. And so it can be in a workforce development area, which oversees the council. It can be a single county, or in some cases, multiple counties. I sit in Seattle-King County. We are a single, just based on pure volume. And the Workforce Development Board is at every workforce development area. It has to be made up by law from business, labor, training, community-based organizations, and state and local government. So where I sit here, we have chief local elected officials, which are the mayor and the King County executive. They have a seat at the table. So now your macro view, and then so business and the 12 areas each have a business services program, and there's an execution of that program, and each area can decide how they want to execute that program. Here in King County, again, I fall under the Workforce Development Council, and I work under their framework. Some areas will have an employment security department help with their business services. I have a mix of both, just based on the size of Seattle-King County. All right, so now that I've confused you with kind of what the puzzle looks like, let's get into some meat and potatoes about what's available programs as far as recruiting, retention, and reduction. Those are the three areas that we work in to help with workforce solutions. Probably one of the most known is our state job board, posting opportunities. It's called WorkSource Washington. It is your taxpayer-funded job board. It is not just for big businesses. It is not just for compliance. Small businesses can use it too. It's there to post opportunities online. If you're just relying on that, you're probably not going to make it. But what's really good for small businesses, you can post your opportunities, and within that program, you can source talent, you can find people, and you can reach out to them for your jobs. So, and just so you know, Monster actually is the provider of that job board. So there's tools and resources in there, but we always tell people that using small business is to try to find that talent using the sourcing feature within that. You do need to sign up to have an account, and it is no cost. There are a lot, again, finding that, sourcing that talent online. You can participate in events. And it just depends on your area. Obviously, I'm in King County, so there's a multitude of partners doing all kinds of stuff. So we operate a little bit differently. Again, I'm talking at a larger macro view, finding out from your local office how they may help. So again, on sheer volume, here I have 7 WorkSource centers and affiliates and over 40 connection sites. A lot of our other areas will have maybe 1 or 2 WorkSource centers in that. So, and I also have 10 community colleges, which are part of our network. We help promote employer-led events or connecting them with our partners in the system. Also providing competitive labor data. That's mostly through our partners in Employment Security Department, working with your regional economist. Their data is all online. You can find it. We help you navigate that. And again, connecting with those local partners at the different centers, affiliates, or connection sites. And again, there's the greater ecosystem of others that are part of the workforce area. It could be your private universities or larger community-based organizations. You also can utilize a WorkSource center or an affiliate, depending on in what capacity. You could, if you're a remote location, you're far away, and you need a particular place to do a meet with people, to do some hiring paperwork and stuff, you can work with your local workforce office if they have that space and the availability. Again, it is a taxpayer-funded center and affiliate. Again, another big push is that work-based learning programs and talent connections, internships, apprenticeships. I'm going to save that space for our other presenters. Also, workforce development councils also have something called on-the-job training or work experience, using taxpayer-funded dollars to train people to work at business locations. Most of the time, those dollars are designed for small business. And again, I did mention about a compliance and a work opportunity tax credit, and there are federal bonding features too. A little bit about retention, shared work program. I'm going to save that for my colleague to talk about that later. There are, again, these are staff that you have. What can I do to retain them, keep them, or train them beyond they need to? The job skills program and customized training, those are two programs that you can apply through our community technical college system that you can upskill your current staff or train new staff using taxpayer dollars based on those two programs. You do apply for them as a grant. There's also something called incumbent worker training, and that is something that a workforce development council utilizes here in King County. I oversee that. And it's reaching out to those small businesses to where they can upskill their staff using tax dollars. And then all they have to do is match it in payroll dollars. So for example, I had a small business reach out. They wanted to train 2 people. They wanted to promote them. They wanted them to go through management training. So we helped pay for that management training, of which they paid a payroll piece for that. And then we reimbursed them for that training. It's designed for small business. It's designed to retain talent. It's designed to also help retain that staff. And then part of that is making sure that they receive a wage increase or some benefit out of that taxpayer stuff. So, and then there's also internal programs that we share that we learn best practices from others. Last area to talk about is our layoff support. Every area, the worst part is maybe they do need to lay off. There are services available in all 12 areas. You can have customized presentations based off the size of the layoffs. Based on your area too, you might have virtual sessions here in King County. Obviously, the volume, we do offer monthly sessions where any employee is being separated, no matter if it's a layoff of 1 or 100, they can come to those virtual sessions. We'll talk to them about what is there to help them. What is WorkSource about? How can they help? Employment Security Department comes, talks about unemployment insurance, Community Technical College with retraining, also about COBRA, keeping those health benefits, Health Plan Finder. And also, if it is an organized area, we do reach out and use our state labor council so they can also partner with them. The program is called the Rapid Response Program. And again, it's a statewide program overseen by each of the 12 areas. And lastly, some key pieces I want to point out. It really is also there for that Department of One. It always has kind of been at this larger macro view about large employers, Boeing and of the such, but it is designed to help those small businesses that like, oh, I can send a person here. Again, it is designed locally. There are some other ways that we can navigate you to. Employment Security Department has temporary standby status furloughs just to get you where those are. We don't oversee that program, but again, we're here to help navigate that. Sometimes you hear something called the Warren Act, or something where if you have 100 plus employees, you need to provide 60 days notice. I know our audience here is a small business, so I won't spend a lot of time with that, but it is an act. And then we do play a piece in that puzzle, and that's reaching out to those businesses to offer that service. But you do not have to file a Warren Act to receive rapid response service. And also trade, if a business loses work that's outside of the country, they can apply for something called Trade Act. And for the sake of time, a couple quick points. Again, other resources, as I mentioned, labor market data, work a lot with our regional economists. Right now, we are in that state where there's still a lot of job postings versus the amount of labor force that's available. Colleagues talked about earlier, utilizing technology and other resources. We have one generation that is really moving away, boomers, and then we have a lot of millennials in there, and then that middle area, that workforce is just not a lot there, the Gen Xers. And so we are in a labor shortage, so it's really trying to utilize those resources. I highly suggest really working with those communities and the geographic people within your area to be able to help with your employment needs. And there are other items too. We really work a lot with our chambers of commerce too, because that's a great way to come in there. In Seattle, King County, we are larger. So I do have 26 chambers of commerce. So we work with them in their different areas. So again, just wanted to reiterate some of the tools, programs, items that are available, a little bit about what the public workforce system, what it kind of is, the makeup of it, and then who can I contact to get me in the right direction, which I'm more than happy to take those questions, get you where you need to go. I do have a link here on the Workforce Development Council, the 12 areas, and then there is a workforce locator to find those different ones. So I will leave that slide up and then I guess take any questions from there, or are we saving them for the end?
We are saving them for the end. So I'm going to go ahead and pass the baton to Stephanie, who can talk about apprenticeships, what they are and what they aren't. Let me pin you real quickly. There we go. Thank you.
Thanks, Cami. I appreciate the invite today, and I'm excited to be a part of this. And initially, I was kind of apprehensive because registered apprenticeship is so different out there in the industry with larger companies, but it really does apply to smaller opportunities with business. And the more I'm hearing other people talk in this forum today, I'm realizing how interconnected apprenticeship might be with all of these other opportunities. So sit back and relax and let me tell you what it is, what it isn't, and let's see if this might be something you want more information on. And let's share my screen. I love Zoom. Okay. Here we go. All right. So registered apprenticeship, what exactly is that? It's two different things happening at the same time. We're talking about working on the job experience along with school related supplemental instruction happening all at the same time. And so with registered apprenticeship, the minimum amount of hours in order to have a registered apprenticeship program would be 2,000 hours of on-the-job training, accompanied by at least 144 hours of related supplemental instruction. If it's 4,000 hours worth of training, you would double the hours of instruction. And what this does is it's saying, hey, we're going to take these hours of classroom and apply them directly to the job in which we're training for. So if you're training someone to be a machinist, they would be going to classes that relate to how to repair the machine, how to use the machine, how to safely operate this, that, all of the different things. They would not be taking art and other classes that may be correlated with a degree pathway. They would be taking things that directly apply. So what are the advantages for apprenticeship? An apprentice earns while they learn. Okay, so they're being paid to do a job. They may start at an entry level position in your company. Maybe let's, actually something that caught my eye. Let's go to Cammie's plumber, pipe fitter, HVAC dad. Okay, so I'm a plumber and I am absolutely passionate about what I am doing. I'm a small business owner and I have done this for 25 years and I know everything there is to know about that. Well, guess what registered apprenticeship does? Gives you a chance to bring somebody on board and show them exactly the way you do it with all of those special tools and skills that you've learned from experience. You get to share that because when you are working with an apprentice, you're considered a journey level person or an expert in that field. So they are learning under the expert one-on-one ratio, and they're going to school to get that extra lift because, with plumbing, it's a licensed trade, right? So there's all of these other continuing education credits that are required to keep that license up. Maybe you need to know about sprinkler systems that you might not be working in right now, but you need to know this information. So that's a real application of how registered apprenticeship might be fantastic for a small skill-based trade. So you're learning from professionals, you're connecting your learning to your work. So we're saying we're going to school directly for the occupation in which I'm training for. Your wages increase as your skills increase. So if you start out being able to do very minimal amount of work, so let's go to like an electrician type of thing. Initially, you need somebody who's just going to pull the wires for you, right? You just need somebody who's going to listen, learn, and do the work that needs to be done so that you can get the day's work done. So maybe that at that time they're making a lower wage. They're at step one. As they progress a year into it, they're going to be much more valuable. They're going to be putting in outlets for you. They're going to be putting in switches for you. And so the value of their time commitment on the job is going to warrant a higher level of wage. So the apprentice gets to look forward to grow into that position. It's a nationally recognized credential. You know, you do get a journey level card at the end of the apprenticeship. And there's a culture of support. A registered apprenticeship is really a brotherhood and sisterhood of people who come together recognizing that a registered apprenticeship is unique, but we are all training to go into the occupation in which we want to be. A pathway for growth. Any training is good training, but trainings that ends in a credentialing that's in your back pocket. So maybe 5 years from now, you want to start your own business after you've gone through a registered apprenticeship. You've got that credential in your back pocket, much like a college degree will always be in your back pocket, right? And there's equal opportunity for all people. Registered apprenticeship is really passionate about recruitment and outreach. And we're looking for people who are participating as employers and as sponsors to really be actively engaged in working with communities of color, with women, and going out there into these very remote areas and bringing people in and saying, hey, we welcome you to this workplace. We want to train you up. We want to invest in your work experience so that you can take it to the next generation, right? Okay, so college and apprenticeship. So initially I was talking about how apprenticeship may be separate from college, but there are apprenticeship programs out there where college partners are a great asset. So the colleges, the state community and technical colleges in Washington who do participate in registered apprenticeship offer a 50% reduction. And so, for instance, there is a program here in Southwest Washington that is training in computer numerically controlled machinist occupation. They have one apprentice, but they have their own program, and they partner with Lower Columbia College, which is a community and technical college here in this region, that gives them the machinist, the welding, all of these classes that are directly in line with the trade that this person is training for at 50% reduction. So that's huge, right? If you're participating with a college partner, then you're also opening up your apprentices' chances of getting a scholarship, chances of getting financial aid, opportunities to have degree pathways, all of this 50%, right? So that's a very enticing deal to attract and recruit someone, saying, hey, not only do we participate in registered apprenticeship, but we also partner with a college and 50% off for that AA degree. I mean, you know, this is just increasing the value add of this participating in registered apprenticeship. There's certifications available at the college level too. It's not all degree pathways. And then also there's wraparound support. So once you are a student at a college, it doesn't matter if you're an apprentice or if you're just a student who came straight out of high school, you're still going to get those wraparound supports. If math is a little bit challenging, or if you need some extra time and support in reading or whatever that might look like for your employee registered apprentice, they get to access those supports at the college. So here's just some examples of some of the apprenticeship training programs that are already in operation in the state of Washington. And a couple that I thought were really kind of interesting to bring about just to kind of get you thinking is medical assistant and cybersecurity analyst. And we even got cosmetology as a registered apprenticeship. So don't think that just if it's not a construction trade that it doesn't have a place in registered apprenticeship, because it just might. So now we get to what if apprenticeship isn't the right fit for my company? That's okay. It's okay. We don't own the word apprenticeship. We just like to make sure that you know that registered apprenticeship, what that looks like. But the word apprenticeship really comes from that earning while you're learning, but it doesn't have to have the state regulatory agency involved if that's not going to work for you. Because all employers want somebody who shows up on time, somebody who communicates when they need it, safety, safety, safety. You know, my favorite one whenever I'm talking to high school students is we're really looking for people who pick up a broom and not a cell phone. And so I know that so many of the employers out there that this is their focus. And so where can we find some of these people? Well, here's some opportunities that you might want to explore, especially if you're looking for someone who is part-time, who has some skills in the area in which you're training, who really is looking for an opportunity to go directly into the workforce and maybe not looking for that college-bound pathway. So I don't know if you're familiar with Skills USA, but it is a high school program based mostly out of their CTC programs, where these are the students who are going to the high school skills centers frequently. They are learning to weld, they are learning construction, they are learning medical assistant, they are learning trades that they can take directly from high school into the workplace. These students are already on a pathway to go into the workforce. And so therefore you might have an opportunity to partner with Skills USA. And I can give you more information on that because I am on the state board for the Skills USA program as a member of the apprenticeship section. Apprenticeship preparation programs are out there, and most of them are geared toward, well, actually they're geared toward preparing people to be able to register as an apprentice. But the way that the policy is set up, we're requiring 15% of the people that are trained through these recognized apprenticeship preparation programs are articulating or getting into a registered apprenticeship. What happens to that other 85%? These people have gone through some extra training. They're ready to go into the workforce, but maybe the apprenticeship opportunity wasn't quite there yet for registered apprenticeship. Could this be an opportunity for you to partner as someone who could be an alternative route for their training? Possibly. Now, there's some other things out there that, like summer internships. What could that look like? Again, you're going back to that high school and you're saying, hey, whenever you guys are doing that career day, come think about this as an opportunity. Come shadow us for a day. And I gave an example when I was talking to Cami about this workshop. And I said, my kids, I have 3 kids, and the oldest child was very career bound through the college pathway. So off she went and she took all my money with her. And she has twin brothers who are 4 years younger. And when it was their time to go check out colleges, one was very driven to go to college, and the other was very conflicted and ended up saying, college is not for me. I want to go into the trades. And we do have family members who also have participated in building and construction trades, but he didn't know where he wanted to go, where he wanted to land. And, we were very fortunate because I work in apprenticeship. So I kind of had some ideas. I was like, you know what, son, how about you go and call a PUD and ask them if they have an opportunity for a ride along so you can job shadow somebody. I'm going to call my HVAC guy who comes and does my service, twice a year, and see if he has an opportunity that you might be able to go ride along with him for a day. My husband got on Facebook and said, hey, my son wants to know more about an electrician. Anybody out there? And it wasn't at any time at all. Small business owner, individual who just is out there doing his own thing, said, I'll take Curtis for the day. Well, that turned into Curtis working for him about 10 hours a week for a little while. He's like, hey, I just need somebody to help me out. And then it was, every week he was needing something, until Curtis decided that this really was something he was totally interested in and totally invested in. And that turned into, now, I think he's about 6 years later, he's a licensed electrician because somebody took a chance and said, hey, I need some help. Can you be flexible? I'm being flexible. I just need 10 hours here. I need 20 hours there while we're figuring this out. So there's opportunities that do come out of this for both the person who is looking for work and the employer who might need someone just here and there. So where do I go from here? This is where the apprenticeship information can be found on the LNI website. It can tell you more about what it is, how to access it, other groups of people who are participating in it so that you can kind of get a feel for who's doing what out there and what it might look like. You can also look at apprenticeship preparation programs and how to contact them. And then there's also, you can connect with me. I'll put my email in the chat if you'd like more information about apprenticeship opportunities in your region, because you don't have to start your own apprenticeship to participate in registered apprenticeship. You can partner with an existing registered apprenticeship and be a training agent. So you would still get to keep your occupation and your business intact. You would just be doing the on-the-job training at your facility with your journey people. So I appreciate your time today and the invitation to come share this with you.
Thank you, Stephanie.
You're welcome.
Raphael, it's your turn.
Well, thank you, Cami. Thank you very much. I'll go ahead and share my screen and we'll begin closing this out so that we can take some questions. Let me know if that's seen by all.
Yeah, I see it.
Okay, good. So thank you for inviting me on Rethinking Recruitment, finding the right people and keeping them. What I'd like to do is focus on keeping them. This program is specifically geared towards that. And my name is Raphael Colon. I'm the Business Outreach Manager with the Employment Security Department. It's a pleasure to be here this afternoon. So I want to cover three things today. Define what is shared work, because it is misunderstood out there. It is not sharing a job with someone else, as the name might imply. Talk to you about why shared work at this particular time. With everything that's going on in the economy, why should even an employer be thinking about this? And then how to start the process of eligibility and enrollment. So we'll keep this short and simple, and then hopefully have some questions. Okay. So one thing we're celebrating this year is that shared work's been around 40 years, and it is definitely a proven business solution. It's helped businesses stay alive, thrive, keep the doors open, continue to serve customers. And you'll see that it becomes self-evident here in just a little while as you learn about it. So what is shared work? Really getting to know the program is what we're trying to do in our campaign to inform, educate, inspire employers to get engaged with government in general, but particularly our shared work program. Shared work is one of 5 or 6 business-friendly programs that the Employment Security administers through its program, and I happen to be that outreach manager promoting those programs in conjunction with partners like John Glenn in Seattle King and throughout the state with the EDCs and the WDCs and all these acronyms that exist out there that include partners, including the chambers and others. But so what is this shared work program that's been around 40 years now beginning to get attention again? Well, it's a volunteer employer assistance program that has stabilized Washington businesses and employers during temporary economic setbacks. And what it does is it leverages unemployment insurance. And I'm going to show you how that works with a couple of examples and then take questions that we may have. So employers have an opportunity to reduce work hours to save their payroll. So some type of economic hiccup. And I don't like to use COVID because that's so rare in our existence. But it's a reality that now that we're coming out of it, employers are still having trouble, as John mentioned, and others, that finding talent, hiring talent, and keeping talent is so important to the success of a business. And so here comes shared work and says, hey, here's an alternative to layoffs. Well, we're not considering layoffs. So it becomes an information and education campaign to get them inspired to what it is and what it could be to help them in the event of something happening. Shared work does pay employees a prorated percentage of unemployment insurance benefits. So what it does is it's taking the payroll of employers plus unemployment insurance, and that combination is providing some sense of helping that employee during that particular situation. Here's an example that we wrote up using our pay chart. And I just want to touch on it because it's imperative that employers understand that this is for full-time or part-time employees, but it is an employer-driven program. So this is our 40-hour calculation chart. The employee usually works 40 hours, let's say, because we're talking about a full-time employee. And if they were to be fully laid off, they would receive a weekly benefit amount of $400 per week because we look at their unemployment insurance eligibility, and this is the number we came up with as the example. They worked 20 hours for the employer that week that the employer established eligibility, and so that the employee established eligibility, both of them, and the employer paid them 20 hours. Well, guess what? Shared work, since it's 40 hours, that's in half, 20 hours. Shared work pays them 50%, as you can see down here, that it's a 50% because the employer paid payroll 20 and we're paying 20. So what happens is the employee earns half of the weekly benefit amount, which is 200. So whatever their wages are for that week, plus the $200 in unemployment insurance, shared work program does not make them whole at 100%, but it gets them there pretty close, 97, 98% that first week. And then it begins to tail off the longer they're on it, and then they come back. So more on this later with a real example. Why shared work? Well, you're in between a rock and a hard spot. You know, you're having troubles recruiting. You're having troubles keeping people because it's just slow times. And so people may not think that you're going to be open or even last or survive. And so what's going on with the economy in Washington is it's up and down in some areas around the state. So you're in search of something credible, and you're hearing talent agencies, you're hearing WorkSource reach out to you, you're hearing an abundance of people trying to get your attention and trying to take your dollars and say, hey, we can help you. Well, this program's been around 40 years. You're in need of credible and reliable assistance, and here's one way to look at it. It's not an answer to everything, but it's one way to keep your doors open and the lights on in front of your business. And that is, it helps stabilize the business. And it's a week by week opportunity that offers you the opportunity to retain your workforce, keep them week to week, and adjust that for 1 full year. And then you can renew the contract at that time. It allows you to reduce that payroll by 50%, from 10 to 50%, as I mentioned. And you're retaining that talent that Jose Luis talked about, and John, and it's been mentioned that keeping them is so integral. Once you've trained them, we've talked about training and apprenticeships and all this. So you've trained them, you've recruited them, you spent a lot of money, you bring them in, and now what's your strategy if you hit an economic hiccup? Well, the strategy is to find ways to retain them, and that's what this program does. And it does it in a way that allows you to continue to serve your customers. So it's very cool. So reasons that we know nationally that are going on as to why employers sign up is, one is loss of contracts or reduction in work. So something's been delayed. It could be supply chain, it could be a public works project. It could be a contract that the legislature, you're waiting for approval. You're a secondary or tertiary contractor, you're waiting for the approval, and it hasn't happened yet. So any delay that affects your payroll, and we discussed that with you, it helps maintain employee morale, because there's a lot of indecision. You're caught between that rock and a hard spot of what's going on with my industry, what's going on in the local community, and challenges that you're facing. Or it might be a response to a true economic hiccup. You know, they've been talking about a little R in Washington State, that little R meaning a little recession. Well, a little R is big to a small business. A small business of 5 employees or less, or even 10 employees. A little R, which we characterize as a little R, could be a very big R to their business, depending on the industry and sector as well, and their location across the state. We've mentioned reduced payroll and the reduce of hiring and training new employees. So this is one way to look at it, so that you're not having to do that. And we know this, that for every $1 spent, it touches 7 hands in a community. So retaining your workforce is very important, so that those folks don't have to relocate their families. They don't have to look for another job, which is a requirement that's under the federal law and the state law for unemployment insurance. But while you're on shared work as an employer, that employee does not have to look for another job. And that gives peace of mind to the employer and the employee and their family. So shared work, let's talk a little bit about the requirements, and then I'll come to a little survey that we've continuously do and kind of results that we get. So the employer requirements are fairly simple. You're legally in business in Washington State. So you're registered with the ESD, you're paying unemployment insurance tax, related taxes to the other departments. You have an ID from Employment Security, and you have at least 2 permanent employees who, when you submit your roster, let's say you have 10 employees, we ask you to submit all 10 names so that we can determine their eligibility, meaning that they're eligible for unemployment insurance claim. And that's the bottom half of what you're seeing down here. And so we determine their eligibility and we get back to you and say, okay, all 10 are qualified. So you can implement the program if you'd like to. 8 of the 10 are qualified, 6 of the 10. We want you to send us the entire list. You may say, well, I'm only looking at this division in my operation, or this section, or these employees. I only want to submit these X number of employees. Whatever it is, we're willing to serve you. That's our job, is to help you determine eligibility for your employees. So, and the fourth very important point is they continue to provide the same medical, retirement, and all related other benefits that you're providing, even though you're taking this reduction. So you can't say, I'm reducing Raphael's hours, I'm gonna also reduce all other related benefits based on hours worked. No, can't be. Federal requirement asks you to stay consistent, because this is a week-to-week program, and next week you could be back at full-time, returning Raphael to work back from 20 hours to 40 hours. The employee requirement is they, as I mentioned, be part-time or full-time, and that they have a valid claim. We look at 680 hours like you normally do for unemployment insurance that we look at. And the employee must be able and available for all scheduled work hours. So using myself as an example, you reduce my hours to 20, and next week you say, Raphael, I need you to come into work for 40. I must be able and available to do that. Otherwise, it compromises any future unemployment insurance. The same if you take me from 20 hours to 24 hours, always able and available for the employer based on a week-to-week basis. So we've done a number of surveys, right, throughout many, many, many years. And this is what we continuously see. 97% say it improved employee morale. Why? It kept the employee from relocating, kept taking care of the family, showed loyalty, and another number of other factors that the employee genuinely loved that employer and said, I want to stay here. I don't want you to close down. Let's make some adjustments here. And so there's that level of communication that's really helped. The program helped retain that skilled talent, whether it was 1 year coming in as an apprentice and then converting them to full-time, whatever it is, that those individuals seem to find loyalty. And especially with maybe specific skills, let's say you have engineers or technicians or technical folks or skilled in a particular area that you want to keep. It's really good for doing that, as long as the communications within the employer and the employee exist. And then we're seeing more and more word of mouth starting to happen at a 99% level, where it's not our marketing that's doing it. It's not chamber meetings. It's word of mouth, an employee getting hired by another employer who then has an economic hiccup, and that employee says, hey, I was part of a program with my other company. And that's how we're getting calls in quite frequently. Here are several testimonials from a few industries. We used this recently because we were covering title companies, why we were seeing an uptake, and obviously inflation and interest rates and title companies not lending money. So they're using it quite a bit. Construction, manufacturing, granite flooring. These are folks that have been around. We've had folks that have been around 80 years in business and said, had it not been for shared work, they'd be gone. So we're happy about that. Here's a little example I wanted to just give you in terms of quantifying how this might look. So Rena has a temporary or has a business, a remodeling business, and she's contemplating what to do. Do I stay open? Do I close down? I have 8 employees and I just don't know what to do. So at a business meeting, at a chamber meeting, she happens to hear about shared work and is told to contact us, and she does, and realizes, oh my God, I don't have to lay them all off. No. Why don't we look at, rather than laying 4 off, which you were contemplating as a strategy, why don't you reduce the hours of all 8 employees, which is a reality that you can do. And she decides to do that across the board. And guess what? Now she has a full workforce, still serving the level of customers that she was having. So she was having peak period, slow, delayed contracts. The remodeling business was slow, and the skills of her employees, she knew that in the community in which she lives, she would easily lose them to others. But upon talking to them on a strategy with us, everything worked out. So here's how it would look. So the scenario would have been this. Do I lay off all 8? Do I lay off 4? What happens if I do? If she does, and she was paying $20 an hour, let's say, as an example, they would be drawing a weekly benefit amount of $400. And that $400 is full unemployment. Now she has the chance of losing those employees to other employers, right? They're going to be recruited because they're going to be, by law, required to look for a job. So they have to look for a job and submit 3 job recruitments or 3 job solicitations every week. So Do I want to lose them? No. So she goes to shared work. Shared work says, let's implement a reduction. So here's what she chooses to do. I'm going to take my 40-hour employees and I'm going to reduce them to 32, a 20% reduction. And now I'm able to pay them for 32 hours. Unemployment is able to pay them $80, and that's $720. So before they were making $800 over here. Now they're making $720 because it's the wage of that week for 32 hours plus the weekly benefit amount. Doesn't make them whole, but it's $80 less for 8 hours, of which she said, I'm going to take that risk until I can turn it around. Now, the same here, if you're an operator, we used an operator example, a restaurant, we often see full-time is sometimes considered 32 hours. She chose to do it at 24, and it becomes a 540 example. The weekly income for 24 hours at $20 plus the unemployment insurance, which is $60, gives you a weekly wage of about 540. So shared work does not make you whole. I repeat that. But it is that communication and that morale and that keeps the employee there. They're loyal to the employer and want to stay. They don't want to relocate and do all that and look for a job, et cetera, et cetera. Does it work every time? No. Is it a bridge? Yes. Does it help economic development? Yes. Sustainability. And I can go on and on. It's made it very simple. How does it work? Simple in 5 steps. We ask you, you can start at the local level with John and his team and others, depending on where you are. There are colleagues like John that work throughout the state in our workforce development and workforce system that you can start with. You're an employer, you know those local folks, you call them, have a conversation, they'll put you in touch with us. Or you can call directly. You could call us at 800-752-2500. You select option 3 as a new employer, and in 60 seconds or less, we tell you whether you're eligible or not. Upon eligibility, you say, I'm interested. Now you can go online and do it online, or we can help you via the phone over 20 minutes, and in 20 minutes, you can have your application completed and ready to go. And it's good for a year. You don't need it for several weeks. You don't need it for several months. Don't worry. You don't have to use it. You use it when you need it, just like you would car insurance or your homeowner's insurance. You only need those in cases of an emergency. This is in case of an economic hiccup or some kind of delayed revenue stream on your part. So you would assign someone to represent you as the person that would be communicating with us via the computer or phone. Mostly both of them occur. But that representative can be you. If you're a small employer of 5 or less, that's usually that employer. He or she's wearing many hats. Or it could be a third party representative you assign because you're outsourcing that information, or anybody else, as long as you approve that initially. And then the employer plan application has to be submitted with the participant list. So the participant list you see down here is what I said, that you give us all the list of your employees so that we can determine their eligibility. That helps us and helps you expedite the program so that when you're ready to use it, you're ready to go. So once the employer plan is approved and we're at the window of anywhere from 20 minutes to 72 hours, that's how quick we can do it. Or if things get busy, like we're starting to see a spike in the system, we have 14 days due to federal requirement. And when COVID hit, and prior to COVID, in the prior recessions of 2008, 2012, the lines were long. And when you're not staffed correctly, and you can't be staffed, the delays take weeks, and then the employer misses out on that opportunity. And we want you to have peace of mind by signing up, getting it approved, and using it when you need it. So the employee receives earned wages, as we mentioned, a share of unemployment insurance benefits when they submit their claim, and you get, for quality assurance within things that happen with COVID, you get a report every Tuesday that gives you a quality assurance report for accuracy, so that the wages you paid Raphael for his 20 hours and the unemployment he has matches the record that you're getting. When they match, you put it in a file, don't have to worry. They don't match, we know there's a problem, you know there's a problem, and we get on it right away so that we avoid the technical issues that happen with our old system with fraud and those kinds of things. Those improvements have been made. So I'll just wrap up with a couple more slides, and just to tell you that here's the look at statewide. So depending on where you are statewide, the left column here talks about eligibility. How many employers are eligible in your county? The middle column talks about businesses currently participating in shared work. That means in your county, and I'll just take Lewis, for example. In Lewis County, there's 16 employers participating, and those 16 employers are protecting 385 jobs. That means that 385 employees have agreed with the employer to have the hours reduced. And hey, we want to stay here working with you. Let's make some concessions. Let's make this happen. So it's just amazing how that works, and it works really well. And we've seen a spike here since May. That's just been what, a month, has increased in Benton, Clark, Cowlitz, Grays Harbor, King, Kitsap, Kittitas, Pierce, Snohomish, and Whatcom, Yakima counties. So phone calls are starting to happen. It's starting to get busy. If you're not registered, something to look at. It is a resource for you that are doing business outreach to inform and educate your business community. There are a number of ways to get a hold of us. That's the best way is 800 option 3. And then there's other resources that we have, a 2.5-minute award-winning video to educate businesses at events. If you're doing outreach events, a chamber event, this is a way to do it. There's also a Wednesday call that we open it up to anybody. It's called Technical Assistance Business Web Technical Assistance on Wednesdays. And it's for 45 minutes to an hour, and people call in and ask us questions about shared work. It's simple and easy. And lastly, on June 27th, we're promoting, I mentioned some of our business-friendly programs, that shared work is one of several. 2 others that we'll be talking about in our 1 hour and 10-minute webinar is shared work. We always give a little overview. It's usually about 10 minutes. Paid leave, paid family and medical leave. We'll be discussing some of the changes that have gone on. And then the Washington Cares Fund, that's been a piece of legislation that passed for long-term care. And that's happening June 27th. So if you'd like to learn more, please join us. If you know of businesses who would benefit from this information, please let them know as well. And we can have them sign up. All of this is free. Okay, there we go. Thank you, Cammie.
Wow. Wow. I am just so thrilled to see all of these resources for our small businesses. Okay, I'm going to get everybody back, pin everybody, and take some questions. Heather Trim.
Well, thank you all very much. That was super interesting. My question is on the apprenticeship program. So if you're a small business in a field that wasn't listed on that slide that you had, what do you have to, what is the requirement for you if you want to start an apprenticeship program? Like, are there standards that you have to meet or something like that? Like, how does, like, yeah, I mean, I'm just kind of curious, like how you would do it.
Okay, so for registered apprenticeship, it does not have to be just those occupations. We would evaluate any occupation coming forward to make sure that it is considered apprenticeable. And apprenticeable would be that it would take at least 2,000 hours of on-the-job training and 144 hours of classroom instruction to train someone in that field. That there is a increasing responsibility and I think it's mechanical and technical ability that happens during that 2,000 hours. So we would do a complete evaluation of that with you and for you. Labor and Industries is not, we work with you without any fees. There's consultants all the way across the state who this is our main focus, is to help people better understand if registered apprenticeship will work for what they're trying to train in. And if it won't exactly fit, maybe turn to the left, turn to the right. Here's some other opportunities to still get that training that you're looking for that can still be, we don't own the word apprenticeship. I always try to say that. We can still be an apprenticeship while you have someone that you are growing to pro. You are giving them all of those skills and that knowledge that you as a business owner or as a craft person, you can really design your training to help benefit your business if registered apprenticeship isn't for you. But if it is, you contact somebody at L&I Apprenticeship and we walk you through the stages. And it's not something that happens quickly. We have to help you, frame out what's your training going to look like. How many hours are you going to spend doing this activity, that activity? So it's quite a commitment. And many employers do find that partnering with existing registered apprenticeship programs is an easier pathway to get into that into these programs. So there's a lot of ins and outs. But I mean, this is a tried and true method of training that's been happening for hundreds of years. I speak to tons of people who are, well, what about this craft and that craft? And it's like, let's look at it. Let's look at it and see if this would fit in the model. And if it doesn't, that's okay.
Thank you very much.
Welcome.
Raphael, the question about seasonality, we chatted a little bit earlier. If you could clarify, does this work for businesses that have more seasonal workflows?
Yes, thank you. There is, as I mentioned, there's a seasonality provision, usually ag, construction, and some others. But what we, since COVID, have experienced is there's been lots of change and adjustments by companies, adapting new product development, bringing in folks to work differently. So what we ask is if you are or have considered yourself a seasonal employer, we ask you not to rule yourself out based on prior history or prior knowledge that you may have, or something that you may have read prior, because this has been around 40 years. In the last 2 years since COVID, many changes have been made, and that's one of them. So please call us. Let us help you determine eligibility, even though you think you are seasonal and you have classified yourself as seasonal. There are provisions now that we can look at based on your last payroll to determine if that's the case. And we're looking to include you rather than exclude you. So we're looking to see where that makes sense. And if it does make sense and meets the test, we're checking the box. Yes, we're including you so that you could take advantage of shared work, since it's a program that you pay for out of your tax dollars. So seasonality, I don't recommend you try and understand it, or let us do that. Let the experts do it. And in 60 seconds or less, we can tell you. It's a great question, Cami. And I defer to our experts on the line on our call center.
Great. John, I know we probably talked about this in our intro session, but I was just astounded at the number of, I think I heard this right, funding resources for training that are out there. Could you recap what some of those are for people wanting to train up existing employees or complement what they're able to pay incoming employees?
Yeah, as far as we'll call it incumbent worker, those that are already at the site. So yeah, there's the three biggest programs in this state are the biggest ones are through the college, community college system, job skills and customized training. You go through a grant process, you apply. It overwhelming. It's small businesses throughout the entire state. And if you go on there, they actually list everybody, hundreds of businesses. And so that goal is to use those tax dollars, but the training for the employer on behalf of the employer has to be done through the community college system for those two programs. And then they're based on different ways to pay it. The other one I mentioned was incumbent worker training through a workforce development council. They also have tax dollars also for the business, but in that case, the business gets to decide who they want to use. And then that decision is made through a policy from the workforce development council. I gave you the example one that I had here locally. So they decide that it's a small business. They decide, for example, they have to look at it. And in the case I gave you, it was they used Arcbright because they needed to they had new employees, they needed to upskill. So that's another one. But again, it's based on the workforce development area. They do have parameters of what the employer needs to provide, but it is an open platform. They decide who the training would be provided by the employer. Does that make sense?
And what is your best suggestion for finding the right person to go to in the 12?
Yeah.
12.
Yeah, there's 12 workforce development areas. And so, yeah, I can put it back in the chat, but there's a workforce development map, and you just go right into there. And on each of those sites, you'll find it. I mean, our audience is kind of small. You can send it to me and I'll get you where you need to go. But Yeah, I'm sandwiched, I'm Snohomish, King and Pierce are, they're 70% of the whole economic engine. So my colleagues to the north and the south, we work a lot together just because of our proximity, and the employers spill over into both and the labor force. So I can get you that, but the workforce development councils on those sites show the business services program how to connect. And then ultimately they can connect back through the workforce system if needed, as I mentioned, our community colleges. But the other two, as I mentioned, job skills and customize, we can show you where you go in, and they have cutoff periods. And everything is done on a program year too. I should say it's not just ever ending. I'm getting ready on July 1st to start a new program year, of which I have some new funding.
Great. Stephanie, a question about the role of a training agent, clarification.
So a training agent would be an employer who's partnering with a registered apprenticeship program to provide the on-the-job training. So if you have your own registered apprenticeship program, you would be a sponsor. If you're collaborating, working, and partnering as your own.
Cutting out, Cam.
Stephanie, we're having some trouble with your audio. If you're talking, I don't hear you. Does anyone else hear her? No. Nope. I will, while you troubleshoot, I'll kick it over to Micah. So Micah, is CIE only working Peninsula, Jefferson, Clallam, and if folks are located elsewhere, what are some of the corresponding similar agencies that they might look to for support?
Yeah, so we are in 4 regions throughout the state. There's the Peninsula, we're in Clallam and Jefferson. We've got our North Mountain region, which is rural Whatcom, rural Snohomish, and Skagit County. We also have the area right around the Tri-Cities and the Palouse in the southeast. And if you're not in any of those areas, feel free to email me. We're part of the SBDC, and we can bump you over to somebody with that. And they're always willing to help folks as well.
Great. Stephanie, do we have you back? Oh, that doesn't look good. Stephanie, can you hear us?
She lost her audio.
Maybe not. Okay, well, just so everyone here knows, the presenters will be sharing their slides with us, and we'll be posting them to our shared page. So we'll be sending that out for folks to rewatch some of these riveting pieces. And I am not even kidding. I felt like I got so many answers that I didn't even know I had questions to. I'm not even in a small business, and I was like, I didn't know that was available. So it's just so great to see what seems like such a complementary, supportive network exists across the state from both, the government level and then these. I'm not sure. I guess you're nonprofit, Micah. So government, nonprofit, and the ways that we work together to create this beautiful puzzle. Oh, we lost Stephanie, but thank you all, and Stephanie, and actually Jose Luis, he had to hop on to another call, for sharing your time and all this wonderful resources and information. I am posting a link to a survey for anyone who can tell us how this workshop and the other workshops went for them. We would love to get your feedback. And again, just thank you to all of our presenters for everything. I think we've got some really valuable stuff to move, repair, and reuse forward in a more sustainable way around.
Cami, can I ask a question?
Yes, please.
How did you advertise, and where did you advertise?
It was organically through our networks. So we have the Seattle Good Business Network, our network that we've established through the Washington State Micro Enterprise Association, just doing outreach to small businesses. That brings up some interesting questions around data and how to find repair and reuse businesses, and it is challenging.
Mhm.
We've learned a lot about NAICS codes and
Mhm.
SIC
Mhm.
codes over the last year and a half. This realm sort of falls into a weird limbo in more the federal reporting and business reporting realms. So it's kind of hard to find folks consistently without doing Google searches. Because somebody can be, let's say, just a great example, Home Depot, don't think of them in repair or reuse, but they do have a repair of tool components and they do rental, but that's not one of their primary NAICS codes. So you have to do a lot of teasing out of data.
Great. Well, thank you.
Yeah.
And thank you for the opportunity. This was it was education all the way across the board, all the partners who spoke, and I think it's too bad there weren't more people, because this is definitely a value add.
Yeah, well, this will be
So,
figured out with, we had a lot of registrants, but this is June and
yeah,
everything is
it's
everywhere.